Joining me right now is Illinois Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democratic member of the House Appropriations Committee and a good friend to us. So welcome back to the show. How should the U.S. respond to the unfolding situation with China and Taiwan this weekend? And how concerned are you generally about what's going on?
Oh, I'm very concerned, but we need to set our foreign policy based on our own principles, not the principles of the Chinese Communist Party. Obviously, they were upset when the Taiwanese president met with the delegation led by Speaker Pelosi, the meeting with Speaker McCarthy, Chairman McCall's recent trip. I understand that. Part of my response to the Chinese government is, I have traveled to China. Most members have traveled to China at one time or another. We're going to set our own policy. It's not going to be dictated by you. I think the second thing that we're doing that I think is very strong in reinforcing our support of allies is they've seen how unified we've been and steadfast in our support for Ukraine. So that was probably the most important thing we can do because it showed we'll put our might where our concerns are.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make. Let's talk about what is happening with regard to Ukraine, because the Pentagon, as you well know, is investigating, along with the DOJ, the alleged leak of classified U.S. documents about Ukraine's war effort and military. It is unclear yet whether the documents are real, whether they're altered, forged, potentially, and who's behind it. But how damaging could this be? And do you think it is real, or do you think it's a disinformation effort?
I think this is the time when I've spoken to you that we know the least about an issue. We've been out of Congress for a week. We're gone for another week. I suspect we'll get some information, but obviously the Department of Defense is investigating this. We just don't know. Is this a leak? Is this a hack? How did it happen? How do we prevent it from happening again? Obviously, leaks of, if that's what this is, or a hack that succeeds, is extremely dangerous. It puts ourselves at risk, it puts our allies at risk, puts our sources and methods at risk, but we simply don't know enough right now, other than that this investigation has to take place and be successful right away.
Yeah, okay, duly noted on that front. Let's turn to the new report from the White House about decisions during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. That report largely blames the Trump administration for the chaos as American troops left and the Taliban took over. Take a listen to what NSC spokesperson John Kirby said about it.
That decisions made and the lack of planning done by the previous administration significantly limited options available to him. The president's transition team asked to see plans for that removal. They asked to see plans for a security transition to the Afghan government. And they asked to see plans to increase the processing of special immigrant visas. None were forthcoming. Transitions matter. That's the first lesson learned here.
Transitions matter, that word uttered 3 times in that statement. And the fact is, we know that Donald Trump was railing about the fact that he had lost the election, didn't want to admit it, and was really obstinate in his departure from the White House. So when you think about that in total, do you agree with John Kirby's assessment?
I do, but I want to be fair. First of all, they're accurate. There was no traditional transition as we go from one administration to another. There's a big price to pay for that, and that rests with the petulant former president, which is a travesty, and we need to be mindful of that. I do think the Biden administration took some of its own blame for what took place in that withdrawal. I think we have to keep in mind something else, too. I think this was also a dramatic failure, and I don't know how you split hairs, not so much intelligence, but assessment. I never saw anything in the status of the army of Afghanistan that told me that they were capable or had any desire to fight. And I guess maybe it's our generals' wishful thinking because we poured so much money into that because you put so much effort in, it's going to succeed. But I never thought that there were capabilities there. And our thoughts that they would give us enough time for an orderly withdrawal were just pie in the sky.
You know what? I want to make the point, doing the math. The Biden administration was in office for 7 months, so those things, those shortcomings that you're outlining could have been addressed perhaps during that time. Let me go with another story here with regard to the Republican colleagues of yours, led by Jim Jordan. They are attempting to investigate the Manhattan DA's case against Donald Trump. DA Bragg calls the efforts an unprecedented campaign of harassment and intimidation. How do you see it?
Look, I mean, Chairman Jordan went to law school, never practiced law, and it's showing. He should still know better. It's not within his jurisdiction. They're playing with the rule of law. And if they're really concerned about something like this, I'd be more concerned with the president, the former president, creating the risk of violence and threats. He's using virtually the same language I watched January 6th a couple years ago, which led to a violent insurrection. I was in the room. I saw it firsthand and nearly brought our democracy down. But it's not something they're focused on right now, keeping in mind that, as you know, who knows what's going to come out of the Georgia investigation, which in my mind could be far worse, or the ongoing investigation of January 6th. Finally, isn't this a little surreal for all of us? I was part of those investigations. They're far more important when you think about how it affects our country. He extorted an ally for political gain, Ukraine. He incited a violent insurrection, which almost brought down our government. Maybe it's appropriate with this kind of man, President Trump, that maybe he's finally being held accountable for something so petty and unseemly as an affair, a cover-up and an affair.
Context. Sobering, for which I thank you, Representative Mike Quigley. Thank you so much.